We should be live. Let me make sure, give everyone a moment to get into the building here. And let's see, give our friends a little while. Let me see if we're on here. Let's see. Are we live? Trying to make sure. You have to excuse me, sorry.
Is it live?
Let's see.
I think
it says we are.
Yeah. It says
okay. Hello. Okay. I'm seeing some Facebook users. So, all right, we'll go ahead and get started. 1 second. Give some more people a little time to come into the room. And let me set up this recording. All right. Okay, so are we there? I'm trying to do two things at one time. Yes. Okay. So, welcome. It is Women's History Month. We are Sis You Good. I am the resident sis, well, one of 6 resident sis, Erin. And for those of you who are joining us, we are a group of women who came together and just realized that we were needing to create a safe communal space for African American women. And thus, we were having all these different and yet connected issues, whether it was with family, with friends, on work, all these common situations. And so we decided to form the Sis You Good. I'll say it's a collective of sorts. Anywho, we are committed to living well, and that is wholeness expressed by loving life. Okay? And so this month, we are celebrating Women's History Month with none other than Dr. Lauren Cross. Woo-hoo! We're so glad to have you. I'm going to read her bio. So here we go. Dr. Lauren Cross is an award-winning artist, curator, and scholar whose work addresses the intersections of race, gender, and access in the field of art and design. She holds a BA in art design and media from Richmond. The American International University in London, England, 2006, a Master's of Fine Arts in Visual Arts from Lesley University in Cambridge, Massachusetts, that's 2010, and a PhD in Multicultural Women's Gender Studies from Texas Women's University in Denton, Texas, and that's 2017. So she is the founder of, where did it go? Sorry, it popped out some of the, there we go. The founder of nonprofit arts initiative, WoCA, that's Women of Color in Art, right?
Women of Color Arts. Yeah.
Arts Projects, yes. Dr. Cross has been recognized nationally and internationally for her art, curating, research, and community work. Her documentary, The Skin Quilt Project, which I love, was an amazing selection. It was an official selection at the 2010 International Black Women's Film Festival in Berkley, California. Currently, Dr. Cross is the Gail-Oxford Associate Curator of American Decorative Arts at the Huntington and the newly appointed Executive Strategist for the National Juneteenth Museum. Congratulations and welcome.
Thank you. So honored to be here.
That is awesome. We are so glad to have you. So we are here for a good time, but not a long time. All right. So we are going to respect Dr. Cross's time and dive into these questions. Now, Dr. Cross, can you share a little bit more in depth about your work and your area of expertise?
Yes. So my area in art and design. I'm an artist, curator, and scholar, and so within all of those realms, I aim to bring the lives and experiences of Black women to the forefront, and more broadly, women of color across all backgrounds, and just in general, diversifying the art landscape through bringing different voices. And part of the reason why I got into doing that is just understanding it for myself as an artist, how limiting the field has been historically and even into the present. So that's kind of how I got into doing the work. And it's been a journey, quite the journey.
Sounds like, but you have been busy. You have traveled so many different places. Where has your art taken you?
So my art took me to England, obviously, because I was at University of Texas at Arlington initially, and then I know going to school there and realizing that I really needed to understand more about the field of art. And a lot of my professors, would say in class, well, who has been to Europe? Who has been to the galleries in London or Paris? And everybody else would raise their hand, but me. And I would just be standing out like, what? Why? How come everybody else knew to go to Europe, but I didn't?
Yeah.
So that kind of like I challenged myself to say, okay, well, I need to find a way to go to Europe. So I did a study abroad at Richmond for a semester and just really fell in love with it and ended up staying. So art took me to Europe, which is I found out later that's actually a common practice for artists, especially Black artists, to find themselves in Europe, sometimes to escape the racism of America, or it's just because it's a different cultural climate artistically, where a lot of times your creative work is more accepted in those environments. And then I've been to Boston, lived in Boston because I got married.
Yes.
At conservatory music at the time, and so we moved to Boston. Even though we were moved back to Texas for a time, my work is obviously my artwork has traveled to Edinburgh, to all over the country, California, New York, just all over. And then from a curatorial standpoint, I've got a chance to travel a lot and speak a lot at conferences everywhere. So I think that's Europe, everywhere. It's just it's been an evolving process, I guess.
Nice. Well, like I said, we are celebrating Women's History Month. And you are currently part of a history making organization, I'll say, in being part of the National Juneteenth Museum. So what has that experience been like for you?
It's been really life-changing from the standpoint of, I am a native Texan. So I am the descendant of enslaved peoples in
Yeah.
Texas. So I have ancestors that I can name that were enslaved and were experienced freedom as a result of Juneteenth. So for me, I
Yeah.
feel I'm living out my ancestors' wildest dreams and knowing what many of them went through. Working on this project is really important to me because I want to honor their legacy,
Right.
as well as help others to understand why it's a part of their legacy as well, even if they're not from Texas.
Right.
And I've as I said, I've traveled a lot
Yeah.
around the country. And I've always been, I used to be surprised that like Juneteenth was celebrated like at a lot of places outside of Texas. So I know that there's relevancy outside of Texas. So it's great to be a part
Right.
of bringing it together.
That's awesome. That is awesome. I recently moved from Texas to Chicago, and I went to a Juneteenth celebration. And I'm used to celebrating Juneteenth because we had lived in Texas since 1985, but to come here and to see and hear the excitement of everyone, and then of course just the eagerness, right, to learn the history, and so it was interesting because everyone was asking, "Do you know how Juneteenth came about?" So I have to say, yes, I do. I'm loving y'all's enthusiasm up here. But Chicago had a parade, and people were really out like selling shirts and just coming together to honor that event. And even though it had such a I don't want to say negative, but the origins of it is positive in the sense that we were released or emancipated, so to speak. The way that we had to go about being emancipated, having to go through slavery, was not necessarily a positive. So, but it was good to see again everyone's enthusiasm and just involvement and desire to learn more about it. Now, is the Juneteenth Museum open, or are y'all still in the works?
So the National Juneteenth Museum will open in 2020. So we're currently in the construction, and really as of February began the demolition of the current Juneteenth Museum, which Miss Dr. Opal Lee started over 20 years ago. And so the new National Juneteenth Museum will be um, in that neighborhood in Fort Worth. And so there's a demolition of those properties that the museum has acquired, and will be a new museum in that neighborhood. And it's going to be a beacon of light in that neighborhood, which has really suffered a lot as a result of redlining,
Mhm.
just all kinds of lack in the community. And so we're really excited about what this museum will be able to provide for the community as well as the country and the world, as people come from all
Right,
over for to visit.
right, right. That is awesome. That is awesome. I'm very proud because Fort Worth has come a long way in
Yeah.
the area of arts and culture. It still feels very small town, but
Mhm.
they are exploding in the areas of arts and culture. And so I look forward to that in 2025. I'll have to make sure that I'm in town for that event. All right. So, uh, as an African American woman, uh, navigating the art industry, what challenges have you faced developing in your career and leveling up to different positions?
Yeah, I think part of my journey really of being a Black woman in the arts really began in college, and kind of experiencing it firsthand. That like, okay, this is gonna be this is gonna be a challenge. Oftentimes I was the only Black woman or Black person even in my class. I think when I was at UTA, I was one of five in the whole entire college.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
so, it was very isolating. Um,
Mm.
and when you're going to school in any artistic field, as you probably know, because I know you're a musician,
Yeah.
when you're in an artistic field and you're in those classes, um,
Right.
uh, criticism reigns supreme, right? It's all about
Yep.
feedback, so to speak.
Yeah.
um, you're the only Black person or the only Black woman in the class. It's easy for people to get the information wrong as to like why you're doing certain things, or just not even understand the cultural context in which
Yep.
their work is being created in. So in college, that was from undergrad all the way to graduate school even. That was a undercurrent of like, okay, this is going to be a challenge, in as an artist. And then so I think that's how I ended up getting into curating, was because I realized there just weren't enough spaces to really affirm artists that
Yeah.
wanted to see their own voice. So, um, and in doing curatorial work, um, then there's always the fight of like, oh, you're the person who's putting this on. So, well, why are you doing this idea, right? So I
Right.
think
Right.
every realm you hit obstacles with people questioning why, and really people don't want to hear um, people don't always want to hear about our experiences, unfortunately. But what I've experienced is, or the joy that I've experienced is that I'm creating these platforms, not necessarily for the people who aren't interested in Black culture, but for the people that, and for the next
Right.
generation that
Right.
sees work and sees themselves and are like, oh my God, like I want to do that. I
Yeah.
want to be part of it. So as there's been obstacles, there's also been the joy in creating opportunities for other people as well.
Yes. Now you mentioned something important there, and I think that that is something that a lot of not just Black women, but African American people uh, have to justify, right? And we shouldn't have to justify it. When
Yeah.
it is a white or non-person of color film, work of art, whatever, they, the universal thought is it's for the masses. This is for
Right.
everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But when we are creating works that may involve people of color,
Mm-hmm.
then individuals don't understand that sometimes that is a dialogue, a conversation between one person of color to another or a group of people of color, but also that even if it is a considered African American work of art, it's still for everyone to enjoy.
It's
You
open
know,
for if you're willing to
right,
receive it, if you're willing
right,
to learn, if you're willing to bypass the fact that you may not see yourself, because the reality is, how many times do you or I watch something, look at something, learn something that we don't necessarily see ourselves every day.
Yeah.
But we're able to get something from it. And so I think
Right.
there's a little bit of a superpower with that, and so we do that regularly every day. And yet
Right.
when we flip the script, everyone doesn't know how to do that. And so
Yeah.
a little bit of a teaching that has to
Yeah.
happen, that you can do
Right.
this. You can see someone
Right.
look you can see somebody who doesn't look like you, and you can, if you allow your brain
Right.
that openness, you can
Right.
see yourself. Like, I mean, we do
Right.
it, you know.
Right. You can see yourself. You can see the person's color. You can
Exactly.
see, also this, well, I don't see color. And then it's like they feel that they have to block out one component in order to receive another. But when it comes to them, it's all acceptable. Like everyone can see themselves in whiteness. And that's not the case.
You can see the humanity of a person. You can see that they do not look like you, and it's a both and. Like, I can see that this person is different from me, and I can also
Yeah.
say, you know what, I can relate to that, even as we are not the same. I can relate, and we know that all Black people are not the same either, right? So I can
Right.
also
Right.
look at anyone and say, man, like, this is not me, but I can learn something from them. And so we're so much more complex, you than what people realize.
Yes. 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 That is good. Now, so what has been your defining moment in your career? What has been the thing that you are like, yes, this is it. This is
Mm,
speaking to everything that I desire.
um, I think there's been so many like nuggets, right? Because it's it's not one thing. It's like it's been a journey, you know.
Wow.
There certainly has been moments of so like when I was in school in London, where I kind of realized my strength, like that I could do things I didn't know I could do. You know, I started off as a photographer
Yeah.
and ended as a not just a photographer, but an installation artist. I didn't know I could do that.
That
So
is awesome.
like a moment of like, I remember my professor at the time, and it just made me so emotional. He was like, "You can do anything you want to do. Anything you want to do, you can do it. Let this be a testament that anything you set your mind to, you can do." And like, I had never made sculpture before, but my like final like senior was a big sculptural 3-dimensional installation where I did like, moldings of different body parts and molded with clay, which I had never used before. um,
Yeah.
but it was, just challenging myself to use something, to basically say like, hey, this idea that I have is good enough and
Mm.
worthy of investigation. And so that was probably that moment of like saying, hey, like maybe after that, if I ever doubted, can I do this? I would remember that my professor said, you know what? Let that be a defining moment to let you know you can do it. You can do it. So
Yeah.
there's been a lot of moments like that where, you have your normal doubts of like, is this gonna work out? But
Yeah.
I would go back to that moment and say, I can do this. It's gonna work out if I keep putting my feet to the pedal, you
Yeah.
know, it's gonna happen. And so I've just kept keeping the faith that anything that God puts that seed in my head, that I'm going to just keep working on it until it happens, no matter what. So,
That is awesome.
but a
That
lot
is
of
awesome.
breadcrumbs, a lot of breadcrumbs as I look back on life of like, oh, well, wow, like I remember struggling through that project, or I remember opening WoCA and having challenge and being like, should I just quit or should I like not do it? And I
Yeah.
remember being that other gust of wind to say, where God was, you can do it. You can do it.
Yeah.
Don't give up. So, doubt and things not working out the way it planned, I kind of get charged up by that. I'm like,
Mm.
okay, here comes the challenge, trying to knock me out. I'm gonna keep working.
Yeah.
So
That is awesome. And I love that you said that, because so many, even even like younger individuals, growing up and moving into their respective fields, they're looking for this one big event.
yeah,
When if they pay attention to their life, it's all of these little events that will culminate right at the end of your life, and you'll be able to look at this body of work and how all of these, sometimes random, right, because some things that we do, it feels like it's totally random, but we see how it's connected later
yeah,
on. But it's all these different things that are coming together working for our good if we just keep moving along. So I love that you said that it's not just one event, but it's breadcrumbs.
yeah. And what I've learned is that there were different decisions, like over time, that had I not made certain decisions, then
Mm,
there were all these other things waiting behind that one decision. Like
mm, yeah.
whole life, planned out. And if I had said, "Oh, this didn't work out. I'm not gonna go back to London and finish."
Yeah.
There were all of these things that I was supposed to learn, behind that obstacle. And when
Yeah.
I look back on it, I'm like, thank God that I wasn't swayed by that obstacle, that I just kept insisting that, okay, I don't know why this is not working out. I'm just keep fighting for this because I really believe
Yep.
this is what God wants me to do. And so there's been a lot of like those like crossroad moments in life where there was a decision that I had to make. Are you going to
Yeah.
believe that it can happen? Or do you believe that because everything is not going your way, do you just assume that, oh, it's not meant to be? And
Mm,
because in those critical moments, I said, I'm gonna keep pushing because I really believe
yeah.
this is what I do. Though that push was every moment, that's exactly what I needed to do. And there was always something else behind that waiting. It was just like you push through that and it's like, oh wow, that was gonna happen, but and it makes me think about, wow, what if I had given up? Oh my God, like I would have missed out on this great
Yep.
opportunity, you
Yeah.
know. So believe,
Yeah.
believe
Sometimes it pays to
that,
stick to it.
yeah.
So, okay, well, we have a question from the audience, and I'm going to give you guys some more time to um, upload your questions. I have one more question, and then we'll get to the questions from our viewers. But what is your motivator?
What is my motivator? Mm, people ask me that sometimes because I get asked at times like, "Do you sleep?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I rest all the time." But there is also like that sense of like, there are things in life, if you're passionate enough about it, that you might be willing to lose sleep. And
Mm,
there have been things where I've been willing to put in the hours. I've been willing to do the things, make it happen. And so I think just really like belief, I feel like that has been like my key motivator. If I never believed something, like if I really, really never did it, I don't know where I would be. Like, but because I have like a really strong faith, a really strong belief that God put me here for a purpose, everything that, God shows me this is what I'm supposed to do. Like that is what drives me in it. I feel it's my obligation in faith to what he's shown me to like get it done. I
Yeah.
see it. If God dropped that idea in my head, then I gotta get this done because I don't want to risk God being like, I gave you the idea, that there. And so I always just feel like
Yeah.
ideas will pop in my head. I'll be like, dang it, like, like gonna have to do it because like it's more of like the fear of not being
Yeah.
obedient.
Right.
You know, then so like that is what motivates me is the feeling of like, well, what if I don't do this? And
Yeah.
that like this is something that I was supposed to have done and I didn't do it, So I feel like
Yeah.
that feeling drives me to make sure that I do everything that I feel that I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. That reminds me of Dr. Miles Monroe. He passed, and I listened to his sermons, read his books. Like I was a fan, still am. Like I'll listen
Yeah.
to a lot of his books still. But one of them is understanding your purpose and potential. And he talks a lot about that, about how the richest place is the graveyard, because there
Yes.
are so many people who died with works of art we'll never get to see, with
Yeah.
films, with businesses, with all these gifts and talents and God-given or inspired ideas that we will never get to see,
Yes.
and that makes me wonder how many people are out there living with passion, like yourself. And are they faith motivated or fear motivated? Because your fear pushed you in the right direction. It pushed you more towards faith because you were, I don't want, you know, I don't want to not see this happen.
Right.
I want God to do it. And I don't want God to not be pleased with the talents or to not be pleased at your lack of usage of talents that he gave you. So you're exploring all of that. But a lot of people, they come up with excuses and come up with, all these different things that will paralyze them to keep them from moving forward rather than leaning in the
Yeah.
will of God, knowing that he's going to carry them forward. So I love that. I love uh, that you were just obedient and listening to the Holy Spirit, because we don't know if you would be in this position if you hadn't. And
Yeah.
that's a breadcrumb. God just dropping things in your spirit to move you along and forward. And
And you don't
this
always
is, of course, not the end for you.
yeah, and you don't always know like whether or not like I mean like God speaks to us, right? But sometimes we're like, did you really say that? Are you talking to me? Is
Yeah,
that what you wanted me to do? So there's also
right,
like the flood of questioning too that can come with that impression that God gives us, that vision
right.
God. Sometimes we can question whether or not, like, are you talking to the right person? Because I don't know how this is going to manifest itself. Um, and I think I just believed, I just, you know, chose to believe in, like David, I also would say, well, God helped me to fight the lion and the bear, right? So
Yeah.
that the power of what God had already done helped to fuel and to continue to fuel what's to come. Because when you
Yeah.
keep relying on God and just saying, okay, I don't know whether this is going to work out, but I'm going to do everything in my power, and
Yeah.
then God do the rest.
Right.
Then those fruits ends up speaking for what God can do future.
Right.
So as you set
Absolutely.
your sights, or God puts other seeds, then it no longer becomes hard for you to conceive of that God would want you to do something, because that muscle is already exercised. It's ready.
Yeah. That is awesome. That is awesome. All right. So let's move into our question. What are some of the things that have influenced your artistic vision?
Well, in the beginning, I think I was always inspired by the high Italian Renaissance artists, which they often were like working with Christian principles. And so in my early like journey, as a young Christian artist, I was always kind of questioning whether or not, like, could there be purpose in me being an artist? And so, like, it wasn't like I later have found that I had an artistic family, but growing up, that wasn't necessarily always communicated, or maybe
Mhm.
we didn't always know it. So, like, to
Yeah.
go and be an artist would seem so like strange of an idea, like
Yeah.
the world. Like, I was a nursing major. So it's like, why in the world would you like change from being a nurse, which has a sure destiny with
Right.
fine bonuses
Right.
and such? Why switch from a sure goal to something that's uncertain? So I think in those early days, knowing that these faith-filled stories they were like God encouraged me through them. It was kind of like my faith in action. Like, if this
Mhm.
if this artist can, paint this really difficult painting, the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, that's some sheer motivation by some faith. And
Right.
those type of things motivated me early on. And as I learned more about different artists, then that just keeps growing, that your list of inspiration
Yeah.
grows. And I had a really great professors when I went to school in London that, and still to this day, I know that was God's divine purpose for me to step out of my comfort zone to like be trained in a whole different realm by people that really didn't have any business supporting me necessarily, but I feel
Mhm.
like God design that
Yeah.
I put there for that purpose. And so sometimes it's not even just like certain like works or artists, also like who's teaching you that you can do this.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been to the Sistine Chapel, and that has to be some faith motivation, because those it it is overwhelmingly
Yeah,
amazing, just how elaborate and detailed, and then like just all of that, even like some of the museums, like when you're in the Vatican and all of that, how the art starts at the bottom of the wall and crosses over your head. And, you know, like if God wasn't working, fighting the lions, the bears, and just the patience that's needed to complete all of that. That
exactly.
is
That's
ridiculous. Um, So that is definitely faith involved. All right. Well, we're coming to a close, but I have some quick fire questions for you. We got about 5, so it's not overwhelming. And just answer. If the audience has a question or two, just drop them in the chat. We are going to try to wrap up here in a few minutes. So, but these quick fire questions should go fast. So maybe we'll have time for 1 or 2 more questions. So, all right. First one. What advice would you give your younger self?
Imagine bigger. Bigger. Imagine bigger. Is my I don't think imagination. I was creative as a young person, but there's just a lot that I didn't even open my mind to just even think of. Like I see young people today and they're like starting a business at like 15. And I look back and I think about my 15-year-old self. I was not there.
Yeah.
So like just seeing the capacity that even in one's youth you can accomplish a lot of things. So I would encourage myself to think bigger.
Love that. Absolutely love that. And I worked with kids, so just seeing them, like, they're so self-focused. They haven't even begun to discover this world and how massive it is. So that is awesome. Imagine bigger. I love that. All right. What does self-love mean to you?
Self-love means to me just quite simply loving yourself and being okay with being by yourself, spending time on your own, and just loving the person that you become, right? Because we're not born like a finished product. We're born in progress. Like we are a masterpiece in progress, and being okay with that, not self-hate because we're not like at the end. Okay with the bumps and bruises and like I think about like a potter's clay, and how you can like break a clay pot down and make it over again several times. A painting, you can paint over it. Like it doesn't have to be perfect. And I used to always struggle with perfection, but being with just not being there yet, and it's okay. Loving yourself is loving yourself enough to feel like it's okay to grow, to not be at the end. It's not necessary to be at the end. You can be imperfect and improper. Okay.
Yeah. Yes, I love that. I love that. One of the things that I had to tell myself over and over was I am a work in process.
That's
always in progress, right? Always progressing, but still a work in process. So that's good. That's good. All right. What is your favorite thing about your self-care routine?
Well, I really I've started to get into hiking more or just walking. And I always liked walking, but I think just enjoying the journey, because I come a runner. So then it was more about getting there fast. So for me now, it's more about enjoying the journey and like walking and if possible in a beautiful garden or on a nice, nature trail. But I love that's one thing that I'm really loving right now. And I work in a botanical garden. So
love it.
That part of life right now.
Love it, love it, love it. Okay. What is your guilty pleasure?
Guilty pleasure. A guilty pleasure or which one?
What is your favorite guilty pleasure? I'll say.
I think I would say like I'm definitely a foodie, so I enjoy learning about restaurants. I enjoy like looking at reviews and I have this whole meticulous process of like evaluating whether a place is like worth my time. And so I always like
Mhm.
enjoy to feel like, yes, like it was on point. My calculations were right. Trying out new places and then like I like sharing it with other people, being like, oh, you should try this place, you should try that. And then my second would be like a good like show, like a good
Mm,
or a good movie. 'Cause I love film and I probably love film more, but I don't always have
mhm.
time for a whole movie sometimes. So a show like a series, like a really good series that I can kind of have some me time and watch on my own. I've been enjoying that these
Nice,
days.
nice, nice. Awesome. Okay, so what is a song on your playlist right now?
Hands. Red Hands Band is on my playlist, and it's not really so on Instagram their whole No Rush song like kind of went viral. So it's like
Yeah.
I have to like be on YouTube to listen to it. Unless somebody finds it on where I can like download it. Because I've not been successful to find it just yet. Like not the version in which I like. So that's kind of
Mhm.
been my favorite song. And just listen to a lot of their songs these days has been like my favorite thing.
Okay, well, awesome. All right, so we have one more question from the audience. What other artists have inspired you?
Um there's a lot of artists that inspire me. But I think one particular artist is artist named Vicky Meek. She's based in out of Dallas and
Mhm.
opportunity to work with her. But I think I'm inspired by her because she also like led a multi like hyphenated life of being arts administrator, artist, curator. So I I feel like there's a lot of correlation to her journey. And like her story always inspires me. She had really amazing like parents that are really active in the community and exposed her to art at a young age. And
Mhm.
she has really profound works of art that she's made that she's even working on now. So
Yeah.
that's probably one artist that I really, really admire.
Okay. Well, great, great. That looks like that was the last question. We so appreciate you for taking time out of your busy schedule, uh, from because you have two little ones
That's
and a whole husband and a career, so you are like doing it all. But we appreciate you for taking time out of your schedule to join us to celebrate Women's History Month. You guys, if you did not get anything from this uh, interview, I hope that you got at least to choose to believe. Choose to believe. You've got to have faith. When you are trusting in the Almighty God, there is nothing, nothing, no trap, no snare, nothing that can stop you
Mhm.
in life. Nothing that can stop you. There's so much. And then the other takeaway that I got was imagine bigger.
Mhm.
Imagine bigger. One of my favorite scriptures talks about now to him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all you could ask or think. You know, that always comes to mind when I am just visioneering, forecasting for the year, strategizing what I'm going to do and laying out my plan, what I'm going to launch, you know, to just do my part and imagine bigger and allow God to just take it forward and do exceedingly abundantly above all that I could ask or think. Okay. So before we leave today, we have some announcements, but I'd like to give Dr. Cross an opportunity. Do you have any announcements, anything? Can you tell the people where to find you, how to follow you, any projects that you're working on that you want to share?
So you can follow me on Instagram at Dr. Lauren Cross. And I think on Facebook, I'm just Lauren Cross or Lauren E. Cross on Facebook, and Dr. Lauren Cross on Twitter. And that's where it's the easiest way to like see what I'm working on, because I'm always doing a whole lot. Say doing the most. Like a conglomerate of that I've done for the past 10 years. Well, I'm really excited about that, to just see like 10 years of my work in one space. And then obviously lots of things to come at the Huntington, and then lots of things to come for NJM, obviously. So just stay tuned.
Awesome. Thank you. Please follow her, you guys. And if you get a chance, check out the Skin Quilt Project. You will absolutely love it. It was amazing. It was amazing. All right, now for some Sit You Good announcements. Join us. I need you all to pay attention, stop what you're doing. Join us May 19th through 21st in Crawford, Texas. It's right outside of Waco. We're going to have our first Sis You Good retreat, and you are going to love it. We will be at Gathering Oaks. We will be transforming our lives and changing our narratives. All right. The best thing that you can do for yourself is to save your life. And that is what a retreat allows you to do. It allows you to have reflection time. It allows you to strategize. It allows you to heal. It allows you to receive support and community. So whatever you're doing, stop it right now. Go to www.sisugood.org. Sorry, www.sisugood. Why am I like not knowing our own retreat page? www.sisugood.org Jesus/retreat. www.sisugood.org/retreat and sign up. There are tiny houses that you can stay in. There are king suites that you can stay in. I think those are selling fast. The queen suites are available, and you can also stay in the gathering house. You do not want to miss this weekend. Grab your besties and go. We have payment plans. Go to www.sisugood.org/retreat and join us May 19th through the 21st. You will be glad you did. Next month, on April 6th, we're going to interview DeLaShawn Bordeaux. She is the founder of Speak Our Truth or Speak Your Truth. Forgive me for that. I had it like right here. But it is going to be an amazing time because we are going to be talking about Sexual Violence Awareness Month. So join us April 6th. We will be posting the advertisements for that event, and we will see you then. Until next time, it has been an awesome time right now, but until next time, We look forward to watching you transform your life. If you have not joined the Sis You Good Well community, Well Women group in Facebook, join. The link should be in your bio on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Join us because it is an amazing community of women who are, again, transforming their lives and changing their own narratives. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you, Dr. Cross, for joining us tonight. We will see you next time. All right, bye.